I have been writing for about 17 years, since 2008. And this one is a book of short stories.
David Walliams sold 50 million children's books and became one of Britain's most loved entertainers. Then one leaked conversation changed everything. What audiences heard in 2022 shocked the nation and ended his decade on Britain's Got Talent. But those crude comments were nothing compared to what he'd been hiding since childhood. Multiple suicide attempts, family secrets, and a pain that started when he was barely old enough to understand it. The real story of David Walliams isn't about fame or scandal. It's about a man who spent his entire life fighting to survive his own mind. David Walliams was born on August 20th, 1971 in Moton, London. His father, Peter, worked for London Transport and made about $8,000 a year. His mother, Kathleen, was a hospital lab worker making $5,200 a year. They lived in a tiny two-bedroom house in Banstead, Surrey. It was only worth around $18,000 back then. From the outside, their life looked normal. But inside that house, 4-year-old David would lock himself in the bathroom for hours, talking in funny voices he heard on TV. His mom once said she found him having full conversations with imaginary people, each one with a different voice. What nobody knew then was that he was already dealing with sadness and anxiety even as a child. When he was 7, David joined the Sea Scouts. He wanted to feel like one of the boys, but within 3 weeks, everything went wrong. Older boys started bullying him for sounding too posh and acting dramatic. That summer, during a scout camp on Brownsea Island, things got truly terrifying. One night, David was found hanging by his neckerchief from a tree. The scout leaders said it was an accident, but later David admitted he had tried to end his life. He didn't want to live anymore. The adults didn't tell the truth. His parents were told he had fallen. That moment marked the beginning of a lifelong battle inside his mind. He became one of the youngest known kids in the UK to try suicide while in the Scouts. By age 10, David had collected 47 comedy albums. He spent his entire 200 weekly allowance at charity shops buying them. He memorized every word of Monty Python and Rowan Atkinson routines. His mom once found him at 2 in the morning performing an entire show to his mirror dressed in her clothes. That same year, doctors gave him imipramine, a type of antidepressant rarely given to kids back then. He said he would wear headphones for 8 hours a day just to drown out the dark thoughts. At school, his grades dropped fast. Within 6 months, he went from getting A's to D's. He was choosing laughter over everything else. In 1982, David joined Rigott Grammar School. But instead of feeling accepted, he was attacked almost immediately. Within the first term, he ended up in the hospital twice. Once for a broken nose and once after being locked in a cupboard for hours. His classmates called him Coco, making fun of how he moved and talked. His weight dropped from 6 stone to just 4 stone 8 pounds in 1 year. His English teacher kept notes of how he'd show up with bruises, claiming he fell down the stairs. The worst moment came in 1984 when bullies forced him to do comedy acts in the school toilets while they threw wet toilet paper at him. Still, in drama class, he got top marks. He once scored 98% for a one-man show he performed about loneliness. That same year, when he was 12, David tried to take his life again. After another awful incident with the Sea Scouts, where he was stripped and humiliated during a fake swimming test, he went home and tried to hang himself using his school tie. His mother found him unconscious. It was 7:43 p.m. when the ambulance arrived. He had been out cold for about 3 minutes. The hospital kept him under psychiatric watch for 72 hours. His doctor wrote that his thoughts were far more serious than what you'd expect for a child his age. David's parents finally pulled him out of the Scouts for good. He didn't talk about this suicide attempt publicly until 2008. At age 13, David joined the National Youth Theatre. It should have been a big step forward, but instead he felt even more alone. He was surrounded by other kids who loved acting. Yet, he felt like a complete outsider. He met Matt Lucas there, who would later become his creative partner. But even that early friendship didn't stop the sadness. David later said it felt like everyone else had friends except him. He just kept pretending to be happy, but inside he was falling apart. When he was 16, David had to join the Actors' Equity Union. But someone else was already named David Walliams. So he opened the phone book, pointed at a random name, and chose Williams. That simple moment would change his life. His father was upset. He felt like David was throwing away their family name. But for David, it was a way to escape. It was like becoming someone new. People at school didn't understand it either. It felt strange and sudden. But David said later that it wasn't about fame. It was about not wanting to be himself anymore. In 1989, David started studying drama at the University of Bristol. That winter, he had a breakdown. He went back home for Christmas and overdosed on pills in his childhood bedroom. His mother found him lying still. She rushed him to the hospital, crying the whole way. He survived, but barely. He later said that his mom's love saved him. The overdose made everything real for his parents. They finally saw how deep his pain went. While at Bristol, he joined a comedy group called David Icke and the Orphans of Jesus. Other members included future stars like Simon Pegg. On stage, David made people laugh. But offstage, he was falling apart. He said he felt like the loneliest person in the world. One time, he had to be hospitalized again. His classmates had no idea how bad things were. He learned to hide everything behind a smile. In 1991, his friendship with Simon Pegg grew stronger. Pegg later said that David seemed like an extrovert who was born to entertain. But in his private diary, David wrote about wanting to step in front of a train. The thought kept coming back. It wasn't just a passing idea. He imagined it in detail. He researched it. Even with friends around him, the pain didn't go away. In 1992, David made his solo comedy debut at the Edinburgh Fringe Festival with a show called Games Night. He was 21. The show got good reviews, but behind the scenes, he was barely holding it together. He had panic attacks every morning and lost 14 pounds from stress. He finished all 18 performances, but just barely. Audiences had no idea what he was going through. That show helped him get an agent, even though he was still silently suffering. By 1995, David reunited with Matt Lucas for a comedy show called Mash and Peas. They filmed it with just $8,000 per episode in a small warehouse. It ran for 9 episodes and made fun of old children's shows. One of their sketches was so controversial it got banned. Their parody, I'm Black and Dad's in the Klan, was considered too offensive. Still, the show became a cult hit and launched their careers. In 1999, they started another show called Rock Profile. They dressed up as pop stars and did fake interviews. But things behind the scenes were getting tense. David would disappear during filming without warning. Lucas had to improvise without him. They made fun of celebrities like Gary Barlow, but some stars weren't happy. Barlow's team even threatened to sue. Despite all that, the show became their biggest hit yet with over 2 million viewers during a special in 2001. In 2001, David appeared in the cult show Spaced as a wild character named Vulva. He played an androgynous artist who did strange performances. He spent hours in makeup for a role that only lasted 8 minutes. One scene ended with him getting punched in the face during an art show. The character was bizarre, but David poured real emotion into it. The experience was deeply personal for him. In 2002, he starred in a BBC film called Cruise of the Gods. He played a super fan obsessed with a fake sci-fi show. He went to real conventions to prepare for the role. In one scene, his character has a total breakdown. Critics said his performance was both funny and heartbreaking. His 2-minute monologue about being let down by childhood heroes became the emotional peak of the film. David Walliams didn't just become famous overnight. His journey started quietly in August 2000 when he and his friend Matt Lucas launched Little Britain on BBC Radio 4. It came on late at 11 p.m. But people who heard it couldn't stop talking about it. They had met years earlier while doing comedy at university in Bristol. And now they were creating strange, wild characters like Vicky Pard, Emily Howard, and Marjorie Dawes. The radio version only had 9 episodes, but it caused a stir. It wasn't just funny, it was shocking. It made people laugh and gasp because it talked about things most shows avoided. That tiny radio show became the first spark in what would grow into a $25 million comedy empire. 3 years later, in 2003, Little Britain moved to BBC 3. That's when everything exploded. The first TV episode pulled in 1.8 million viewers, a record for the channel. Walliams didn't hold back. He dressed up in wigs, makeup, full costumes, turning into wild, exaggerated characters that made some viewers laugh and others completely uncomfortable. One of his most unforgettable was Emily Howard, a man pretending badly to be a woman in Victorian clothes, saying, "I'm a lady," in a high voice. By 2005, the show was airing on BBC One and pulling in 9.5 million viewers per episode. That meant almost 4 out of 10 people watching TV at that time were watching Little Britain. It made $3.5 million just from DVD sales. Walliams had become a comedy star, but not all attention was good. In 2004, he introduced a character named Harvey Pincher who cried out, "Biddy, Biddy," while pretending to breastfeed from his mother. Walliams wore a baby bonnet, acted like a child, and did it in restaurants and shops. People were horrified. Parent groups and religious leaders demanded it be taken off the air. Some countries banned it completely. Yet, it became so popular that they even sold Bitty merchandise and it made even more money. Walliams later said he did it just to shock people and it worked. In 2005 and 2006, Walliams and Lucas took Little Britain on a live tour. It became the longest-running UK comedy tour of all time. They performed 201s in front of $800,000 people and earned over $25 million. Tickets sold out a year early. But while Walliams was making everyone laugh, he was secretly falling apart. On New Year's Day 2003, before the tour, he had tried to kill himself. He cut his wrists and throat with a kitchen knife. Later that same year, he tried hanging himself. In his diary, he wrote, "I knew I didn't really want to die. I just didn't want to live." He still went out and performed night after night. His mother once found him after an overdose and cried for weeks. Even while staying at the Priory Clinic for depression, he kept doing the shows. In 2008, Little Britain crossed the ocean. HBO aired Little Britain USA and it got 2 Emmy nominations. Walliams put more of his own sadness into the characters this time. They weren't just funny, they were broken like he was. But American viewers didn't like the same kind of jokes. Many were upset about the stereotypes and even accused the show of racism and blackface. The ratings were so low that HBO canceled it after just 6 episodes. Even though it won an Emmy in 2007 for Best Comedy, the show's American version didn't survive. That moment marked the start of Walliams' downfall. Comedy was changing and his style didn't fit anymore. In 2012, he joined Britain's Got Talent as a judge, sitting next to Simon Cowell, Amanda Holden, and Alicia Dixon. He brought in over 11 million viewers per episode. The 2015 finale had 12.75 million people watching. Walliams became famous for his emotional reactions, even pressing the golden buzzer for a school choir that brought him to tears. But in 2020, microphones picked up his private comments during auditions. He said nasty and sexually graphic things about contestants, calling one woman the slightly boring girl you meet in the pub that thinks you want to them. When the recordings were leaked in 2022, it caused a scandal. Walliams apologized, but the damage was done. His time on the show ended in shame. Back in 2015, Walliams had taken a more serious role in Partners in Crime, a BBC drama based on Agatha Christie's books. He played Tommy Beresford, the clueless but sweet husband in a detective couple. It aired for 6 episodes starting July 26, 2015, but the reviews were mixed. It got a 6.5 rating on IMDb, and the BBC decided not to do another season. Walliams had shown he could act outside of comedy, but the magic wasn't there. He tried returning to sketch comedy in 2016 with Walliams and Friend, starting with a Christmas special that drew 6 million viewers. But after just 6 episodes, the numbers dropped to 2.3 million. The sketches had moments that felt too close to his later controversies with jokes that didn't land well. Critics called it clever, but the show was cancelled after 1 season. It felt like Walliams was stuck. His old style wasn't working anymore. He had a small role in the 2007 movie Stardust as Prince Sextus. The film had a huge budget around $70 to $88.5 million and starred Robert De Niro, Michelle Pfeiffer, and Claire Danes. It made $137 million worldwide and became a cult favorite. Walliams' part was small, but it showed he could hold his own next to big stars. In 2017, ITV gave him his own talk show, The Nightly Show. It replaced the 10 p.m. news and started strong with 2.9 million viewers. But by Friday, only 1.2 million were watching. That was a 59% drop in just 5 days. Critics tore it apart. People were angry the news got moved. The whole thing was seen as a failure. And it was the last time Walliams hosted a solo show. But while all this was going on, Walliams was becoming a different kind of star. In October 2008, he released The Boy in the Dress, his first children's book. It told the story of a boy named Dennis, who wears girls' clothes. It caused a huge stir. Some parents said it was promoting transgenderism and called it dangerous. In 2017, the controversy grew when shoppers in Australia demanded it be removed from Aldi shelves. But the book became a hit anyway. Walliams said he wrote it to help people understand and accept each other. It was turned into a BBC film in 2014 and even became a Royal Shakespeare Company musical in 2019. That book started a new chapter in his career that would sell over 40 million children's books. Walliams didn't just write. In July 2006, he swam across the English Channel 21M in 10 hours and 34 minutes. He battled jellyfish, shipwakes, freezing cold, and pushed through by singing Pet Shop Boys and ABBA songs in his head. He raised almost $1 million for sport relief. But later, he said it wasn't just for charity. He was trying to escape the sadness in his own head. He trained for 11 months while still doing live shows and called the swim his redemption. In 2011, he published Gangsta Granny, inspired by the pain of losing his dad, Peter Walliams, to liver cancer in December 2007. Peter had only been diagnosed 3 months earlier. He didn't even drink, so the illness shocked the family. Walliams stopped everything to be by his dad's side, even delaying the US version of Little Britain. Gangsta Granny was about an 11-year-old boy who finds out his grandma is a jewel thief, but it was really about love, loss, and how family matters more than anything. It became a hit TV special and got a sequel in 2022. In September 2011, Walliams took on another swim, this time 140 minutes through the polluted River Thames. He got sick halfway through, vomiting and feverish from swallowing bacteria, but he kept going and finished the swim on September 12, 2011. He raised over $1 million again. He later said he did it to distract himself from depression. The pain helped him fight the sadness. His 2012 book, Rat Burger, was made into a Christmas film in 2017. It told the dark story of a girl named Zoe who is abused at home and bullied at school. She finds a friend in a dancing rat and faces a villain who wants to grind rats into burgers. Walliams based that creepy villain on a real man he saw audition for Britain's Got Talent who ate live cockroaches. The story was funny but filled with pain, just like Walliams' own childhood. In May 2010, Walliams married Dutch supermodel Laura Stone at Claridge's Hotel in London after only 8 months of dating. Their son Alfred was born in May 2013, but the marriage was already falling apart. Walliams was battling constant depression and suicidal thoughts. His moods were so unstable that even a psychiatrist warned of the danger. In March 2015, Laura moved out with their son and the dog. Walliams tried to hide his pain, but it was obvious to those around him. Their divorce turned into a bitter court fight over $19 million. David had earned $16.3 million while Laura had $2.6 million. The battle over money and custody of Alfred dragged on for over 14 months. The final settlement was kept secret, but the stress of it all made Walliams' mental health even worse. In 2020, while filming Who Do You Think You Are?, David learned something that shook him. His great-grandfather, John George Borman, had spent 43 years in a mental asylum after suffering from shell shock in World War I. He was certified insane in 1919 and lived the rest of his life in a hospital until he died in 1962. David realized that mental illness had been in his family for generations. He saw in his great-grandfather the same pain he had been fighting all his life. In 2003, while the world was laughing at the hit comedy show Little Britain, David Walliams was quietly falling apart. That year, he tried to end his life more than once. On New Year's Day, he took a kitchen knife and cut both his wrists and his throat. Later that year, after a painful breakup, he tried hanging himself. He wrote in his diary, "Just tried to hang myself, but I knew I didn't really want to die." I just didn't want to live. I took my weight with my feet and sat down. He also said he nearly stepped in front of a train. While the public saw a funny man on TV, behind the scenes, he was drowning in sadness and desperation. Nobody knew just how serious it was. His pain didn't start in adulthood. Back in 1989, when he was just 18 and home for Christmas during his first break from university, he overdosed on painkillers in his childhood bedroom. His mother, Kathleen, walked in and found him lying lifeless on his bed. She thought he was dead. He later said it broke her heart. She cried for weeks. "I'm ashamed I was so selfish to put her through this." That overdose was the first sign of something much deeper, something that had been building since he was young. When he was 12 years old, he went to a Sea Scouts camp and was badly bullied. It hurt him so deeply that he tried to hang himself at the camp. He only stopped because he was too tall for it to work. That moment marked the beginning of something dark inside him. From then on, self-destructive thoughts became a regular part of his life. No matter how successful he became, that pain followed him everywhere. In the 1990s, doctors finally gave it a name. He was diagnosed with severe depression and was treated at the Priory, a well-known clinic for people going through mental health crisis. His family had a history of mental illness, and that made him even more vulnerable. Studies say bipolar disorder can be passed down through families, and people with close relatives who have it are almost 8 times more likely to develop it, too. For Walliams, the sadness wasn't just about bad things happening. It was wired into him. In 2011, he did a 140-mile charity swim in the River Thames. He said he wanted to punish himself, to feel pain, to push his body as hard as his mind had already been pushed. But the river was filthy. He got violently sick. He vomited, had diarrhea, high fevers, and nearly died from an infection known as Thames tummy. Some swimmers who got the same illness ended up on life support. His body started shutting down. He later needed emergency back surgery in 2013 because of the damage. What started as a good cause ended up being another way he hurt himself. Then in January 2020, something happened that changed his life again. During filming breaks on Britain's Got Talent, he made private crude comments about contestants. He didn't know the microphones were still recording. He called an older man a terrible word and made a sexual joke about a female performer. These were supposed to be private jokes, never meant to be heard. But in November 2022, nearly 3 years later, the transcript leaked to the press. It shocked everyone. Walliams was 51 then. He apologized right away, saying those conversations were never meant to be public. But it was too late. The scandal exploded. People who had once seen him as a kind children's author and family entertainer were now seeing another side. Fremantle, the production company behind Britain's Got Talent, had just offered him a $1 million contract to return for the 2023 season. They took it back immediately. That same month, his psychiatrist revealed Walliams was having severe suicidal thoughts again. He couldn't stop the negative thoughts. He told people he had lost his ability to be funny. He became scared to even enter a TV studio, worried that more recordings might come out. His decade-long run as a judge from 2012 to 2022 was over. He was replaced by Bruno Tonioli, who was paid $1.5 million. In September 2023, Walliams sued Fremantle in the High Court. He said they had kept his microphone on all day, even during breaks, and recorded his personal conversations without telling him. The lawsuit revealed they had recordings of him talking about his food addiction, his father's death, and the end of his marriage. Walliams said the leak had caused him serious mental harm and massive financial loss. In November 2023, they reached a private settlement. Fremantle apologized and promised to treat future performers with more respect. The damage to his career was massive. After the story broke in November 2022, he lost around $1.7 million during planned work. A Channel 4 project set in India was cancelled. Stage shows based on his best-selling children's books were dropped. His podcast with Matt Lucas was shelved. Nobody wanted to take the risk of working with him. His reputation as a safe, family-friendly writer was shattered. TV channels stayed away. Book events went quiet. Court documents confirmed that almost all his TV income had vanished. The contrast between the man people thought they knew and the man in those recordings was hard to accept. He had spent over a decade building a career as a children's writer, selling more than 50 million books in over 50 languages. Titles like Gangsta Granny and The World's Worst Children made him a household name. His stories were funny and sweet. Parents trusted him. Kids loved him. But now everything had changed. His private pain had been recorded. His jokes, his sadness, even his darkest thoughts, things no one was ever supposed to hear, had been exposed. What hurt even more was how systematic it was. For 10 straight years, from 2012 to 2022, his microphones had picked up nearly every moment. And when those recordings came out, the image he had spent so long building crumbled overnight. He had originally sued for $10 million, but in the end, the settlement was said to be way under that amount. Still, it gave him a small chance to breathe and start again. In December 2024, he reunited with Matt Lucas. They were working on a new podcast together called Making a Scene, planned for release in January 2025. They also met with Netflix to pitch some new projects, not Little Britain reboots, but fresh ideas. Lucas said they'd be playing themselves and promised their humor would be edgy but not offensive. They knew times had changed. Despite everything, Walliams' books kept selling. His total sales crossed 50 million in 2022. Gangsta Granny alone sold 1.16 million copies. His work had been translated into 53 languages. He kept writing, releasing new books like the David Walliams Annual 2025. In January 2025, he went on tour in India to promote his books, which had already sold 37 million copies globally. Writing had become more than just a job. It became his therapy, his way of surviving. In November 2024, he spoke out again about the moment his mother found him in 1989. He described the scene in heartbreaking detail. She found him unconscious on his bed. He had taken an overdose. He said, "It broke her heart. She cried for weeks. I am ashamed I was so selfish to put her through this." He also talked about the fear he lived with. Fear of life, fear of love, fear of everything. He wanted people to understand that mental illness can hide behind a smile. That family can make the difference between life